my really key questions this morning. Like, why? Why do we have to apply, reapply? Why can't it just do it once?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that is one of the downsides to sunscreen. Maybe further research will be able to get sunscreen that lasts longer. But for now, once you sweat, once the molecules that are there are this used up by the UV rays, so to speak, you have to replace them. So those are the two things that make it not to last so long. Yeah, so but as science and research progresses, I'm sure one of the things they are working on is a longer lasting sunscreen.
Should be fast with it, Victor.
When my day has kicked off and I'm moving through the buzzing city of Lagos, I've got the radio to keep me company with a collection of smooth music on Smooth 98.1. Smooth like that. I am Udoka Onyeka.
The boy is mine, the boy is mine, the boy is mine, the boy is mine, the boy is mine.
Shit. Oh, where is this thing?
Excuse me, can I please talk to you for a minute? Sure, you look kind of...
Feed your mind and the rest will follow.
Free your mind!
Okay, we're coming in.
You start with figuring out, what does health look like for me? Physically, mentally, emotionally, and work really hard on being good at you.
Healthy mind, healthy body, healthy life. Soul Food on Smooth 98.1.
It's time for Soul Food here on Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life, and we are ready to talk about the sun and your skin. This is a topic very, very important. I know you have melanin, you're brown skin girl, boy, but is the melanin enough to fight the UV rays that are coming from the sun? And sometimes there's that question of, why do I need to put on a sunscreen? Even if I am black and I got so much melanin in my skin, that will protect me. Well, this morning you're going to get answers to most of your questions. I cannot see all your questions. So you can start to send the questions in right now on 0809-444-0981. Again, 0809-444-0981. Or you can choose to send it on YouTube in the live chat option, which is youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos. I am happy to be joined by another of my favorite dermatologist. You know her. She's no stranger to the show at all. I think she's been here about 4 or 5 times, and she's here again, this time on Zoom, not in flesh and blood, but hey, the presence is all that matters. You can see her face right now on YouTube if you go to join the stream, and she's looking so flawless and fresh. You know how it is. If you're a dermatologist, the skin has to pop. So I am talking about the one and the only consultant physician and dermatologist, our very own dancing doctor, Dr. Folakemi Cole Adeife. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing, Sharon? It's always a pleasure to be on the show.
Thank you so much for always being my guest. I appreciate it.
Yes, and compliments of the season.
True.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get right to it. The question, I will start with that one. First off, we know that there are some benefits of the sun, right? We talk about vitamin D and all of that. And then we hear, so this, I'm sure I've mentioned it to you that this topic came as a result of that study you conducted, asking for the
Mhm.
opinions of Nigerians if they use a sunscreen, their attitude towards sunscreen and skincare generally. So I will even start with that. What were your findings from that study?
So the study is because sunscreen is not particularly as commonly used in Africans or Black people, but we wanted to be sure, wanted to see whether that has changed. There has been a lot of education about skincare, and a lot of people now are a bit more enlightened about, or they're more interested in taking care of their skin. So we wanted to see if, what people's attitudes and knowledge about sunscreen, apart from sunscreen, we also asked a few questions about skin lightening and general sun care practices. So what we've seen so far, we had about 750 responses so far, and we found that quite a number of people that, took that survey knew about sunscreen. So we had about up to 65 to 70% of people who say they do use sunscreen. And that may be really high because, people that will feel the form online will be people who are a bit enlightened, who have access to, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and other social media platforms that, if you follow beauty bloggers, they keep emphasizing, and dermatologists, the role of sunscreen. So we did have quite a high percentage of people on that study who did say that they used or they did use sunscreen, but there were still some people who said no. And there were some people who still believe that Black people don't need sunscreen because, we have enough melanin. So we don't really need to use sunscreen. But most people did mention that. We also asked about, how frequently, and, we were having a conversation about that, just before we came on air. And, most people did say they just managed to use it once a day, even though, ideally for sunscreen to be effective, you have to reapply it more frequently. Unfortunately, it's very inconvenient, but that's just the way it is for now. And, we did find that a lot of people, the quantity of sunscreen to be used is not really, a lot of people didn't really know. Yeah, because sunscreen tends to be a little bit pricey. People want to mice it and just use a little bit. And, so there were it was interesting to see how things have kind of changed over the years. Because, if we had done this same survey or similar studies done in the past, although there have been few in African, but similar studies done in the past had much lower, incidence or lower percentage of people who actually use sunscreen. So, but I know that because of the demographic of that survey, we probably would get a relatively higher number. But if we were to take that same survey, probably to the marketplace, for instance, we would have a much lower, So it also depends on the demographic that is, responding to the survey. But it was interesting findings. Very interesting findings.
All right, we'll take our first break, and when we come back, we will answer that question that people are asking about the function or the benefits of my melanin. If I am Black, I have melanin, and we've been told that the melanin is what protects us against the UV rays of the sun. Why do I still need to use the sunscreen? And then we get into other talks. So you're listening to Soul Food here on Smooth 98.1, and we are talking about the sun and your skin. My guest is Dr. Folakemi Cole Adeife.
Are your number one contemporary radio station.
So we have like 46
easy betting, easy winning.
minutes.
No,
seconds.
Reliable service to make a deposit easily.
Okay, for the break.
On the spot.
No. We have less than 30 minutes to go.
Okay.
I'm just looking at the average.
Okay.
9,218 naira on your first deposit. Easy to use, easy to win. 1xBet, the reliable bookmaker.
Are you off there?
You spend your time with
will have a great impact on what kind of life you live.
Yeah, we're moving.
On Smooth 98.1.
Stimulating, motivating, inspiring.
People that
Yes.
inspire us, challenge us, and make us better.
It's Smooth Motivations every Sunday morning with great
That's
motivation music.
my husband saying hello and
Good
bye-bye.
morning.
Morning.
Smooth Motivation every Sunday from 7 a.m.
All right, we're coming back in.
My name is IBK Spaceship Boy. I inspire my world through music.
On Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. Stay tuned.
Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. It's all about the sun and your skin. And my guest is Dr. Folakemi Adeife. My name is Oluwaseun, and you can go live to YouTube. It is youtube.com/smooth91FM Lagos. And you can also send your questions to 0809-444-0981. So, Doc, what is the advantage, or what are the advantages of my melanin?
So melanin has a lot of very good advantages, and we all have melanin, contrary to what people think that, oh, it's only Black people that have melanin. There are two major types. There's the eumelanin and the pheomelanin. So people of lighter skin types tend to have more of the pheomelanin, which is like a reddish pigment, but darker skin people have a lot of eumelanin, which is a bit darker. So melanin helps basically to protect the very delicate forming skin cells from UV rays. So what UV rays can do to these skin cells is to damage them, to cause DNA damage, which can lead to burns, and over time can lead to skin cancers. So the more melanin you have, the less likely that you're, going to develop a sun-related skin cancer. So that's one thing. Another thing is that the UV rays of the sun also can damage the collagen in the lower layers of the skin. So we have collagen that gives us the plumpiness and the firmness of the skin. And the rays called UVA rays are known to actually kind of break down, the collagen over time. And that's what causes aging of the skin and wrinkling and fine lines and all that. So you find that people who have more melanin, that process is a bit slower. And that's one of the reasons why there's this saying that Black don't crack, so to speak. So it does have a lot of benefits. And it, like I've mentioned before, that melanin, the content of melanin is a natural adaptation to the environment, the main environment. So people who have, whose ancestors have lived in the tropics, where there's a lot of sun around the equator, tend to have higher melanin content as an adaptation, as sun protection. While people who have lighter skin types, or people who live in places where there's very little sun, tend to have less melanin. And that's because you still need some of the UV rays from the sun to produce vitamin D. So for people who have very dark skin type, their skin is less likely to absorb UV rays for vitamin D. So that balance needs to be there. So people who live in places where there's minimal sun, they need minimal melanin so that they can still make enough vitamin D to survive and to have healthy bodily functions. But where you have a lot of melanin, a lot of sun, you'd only need a little amount of UV light to make your vitamin D. So the body would naturally filter out most of it. So let's say you need just maybe 5% of UV, but the sun is producing 80. So your body needs to be able to filter out like the remaining 75. But if where you live, only maybe 40 or 30 is being produced, then the body just needs to filter out 25. So that's why, melanin content differs depending on geographical location. And then, but as people move around the world and people live in different parts of the world, you can have Caucasians living in Africa, where it's really hot. You can have dark-skinned Africans living in Europe, like we do a lot these days. So that's natural adaptation is no longer as relevant, but it's also important for people living in these areas to be able to adapt their skin to the prevalent sun in those areas. So dark-skinned people who live in Europe need to take vitamin D supplementation because their skin is going to filter out all the UV light that is produced because it's dark, and they may not have enough natural vitamin D. While people who are lighter skin who live in Africa may get burnt if they don't protect their skin from the sun. So the usage of sunscreen is more important for lighter skin types. But we've now noticed that even with dark skin, melanin is protective, but it's not 100% protective. So there is still a need for the use of sunscreen, particularly for something we call photoaging. That is how the collagen and the UV rays destroy and weaken collagen in the skin, and also the way the skin responds to the sun by getting darker. So we find that in us Black people, over time the sun makes us darker, causes our the exposed parts of the body to have different colors. So that's why you see people having dark eye circles or around the mouth as they get older, and that is undesirable. So even though we are not likely to get skin cancer because of our melanin content, because people are more interested in looking younger, for longer, that's one of the reasons why, sunscreen is still relevant for dark-skinned people. But it is not usual or common for a dark-skinned person to develop skin cancer from sun exposure, unlike Caucasians or people with albinism who don't have as much melanin content in their skin as we do. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, very, very explanatory. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Before I go further into photoaging and the way it presents, I would like to ask now, someone who has heard this, the importance of using sunscreen, might want to go get sunscreen, but what are the things you have to look out for when you're choosing a sunscreen?
So with sunscreen, there are different types, and it's important to actually be able to know what is appropriate and what is suitable for your skin type. So it depends on the color of your skin. It also depends on this, whether your skin is oily or dry or sensitive, because there are different formulations. Some sunscreens are more water-based, some are more cream or oil-based. Then we also have what we call mineral sunscreens and chemical sunscreens, or physical blockers or chemical blockers. So most people, and then the physical blockers tend to be better, but they're a bit more difficult to use for dark-skinned people because they tend to leave a whitish, grayish cast on the skin. So mineral blockers, are more well recommended because chemical blockers are effective, but have a lot of other possible side effects. Because they are absorbed into the skin, they can cause irritation. And then there are certain circumstances where you can't use them, like they're not really advised in pregnancy and in very young children. Whereas the mineral blockers can be used, for anyone. But we find that for us dark-skinned people, it's very problematic because of the way it makes you look like an Ojuju Calabar sometimes. So finding a mineral sunscreen that doesn't have that grayish cast can be a bit challenging. And then such mineral sunscreens are usually, at a higher price point than a regular sunscreen. So there are many factors to choosing sunscreen. There's your current status, there's your skin type, there's, your budgets, your pockets, and what you want to achieve with the sunscreen. So for everyone, an average person can use a good mineral or chemical sunscreen. And, if you have oily skin, you want to use one that's more water-based. And if you have dry skin, you want to use one that's more, cream-based. So sometimes you have a mixture of a moisturizer and a sunscreen. Then also in this part of the world, because of the high UV intensity, you have to use a sunscreen that has a high sun protection factor. So sun protection factor is usually tells you how strong the sunscreen is in protecting or effective in protecting against UVB. And UVB is there's UVA and UVB. UVB is one of the UV rays you want protection against. Then there's another parameter called the PA plus parameter that tells you how well the sunscreen protects against UVA. So UVA is responsible for photoaging mostly. UVB is responsible for sunburn and skin cancer. So you want a sunscreen that has protection against both UVA and UVB. For us, particularly UVA, because like I said, UVB is not really the concern as much as UVA in black skin, but it's important. So having a combination of both is very important. So the sun protection factor recommended for people who live in the tropics like Nigeria and most of West Africa is which has a very high UV intensity is SPF 30 and above and PA plus 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 and above. So you want a sunscreen that on it has UVA, UVB protection and a minimum of SPF 30. SPF 50 is desirable, but SPF 30 is sufficient for a dark-skinned person living in the tropics. So those are some of the things that you want to look out for when selecting a sunscreen.
Thank you so much. That's very detailed. However, before I leave that question of sun, do I still need to wear a sunscreen even when the sun is not out?
Well, yes, because even though it doesn't feel hot, there are many times when you still have a lot of UV intensity, even on a cloudy day. The UV intensity can be higher than you perceive it to be. So yes, we do recommend that once you're outdoor during the day and there's daylight, you apply a sunscreen. Sometimes even when you're indoors and you have a lot of windows in the house, the reason being that UVA can penetrate through glass. So a lot of people say, oh, I've been indoors all the time, I didn't need to use my sunscreen. But that's not entirely true. Yes, you may not need as much as if you're outdoor, but once you have lots of windows and the sunlight and sun rays can get through, you probably do need, at least one application, particularly for people who maybe are going through some cosmetic procedures that require them to be very, very meticulous and religious with their sunscreen use. So if you've had a chemical peel, for instance, don't say that because you're not outdoors that you won't use it. You have to use it every day so that you don't end up having what we call rebound hyperpigmentation, where you're doing a peel to improve the texture of your skin, but because of sun exposure, it then gets darker, which is not what you want to achieve.
Thank you so much. We'll take another break, the final break. And when we come back, there is one I want to talk about. That is the signs of photoaging. Particularly, there is, I believe it is called, where did I write it? Yes, idiopathic guttate hypomelanosis. Those white stains that you tend to see on people's body, especially as they're growing older.
Yes, that can happen, but it's not just photoaging, but we'll talk about it.
Exactly. I need more light on it. Yes. Thank you so much. In case you're joining us for the first time, we're talking about the sun and your skin, and it has been quite enlightening. So you can join us if you'd like to. Just hold on a bit and we'll be right back after this.
And a fresh jar of Hey, what's up? This is Tyree. Stay tuned, stay locked right here on Smooth 98.1.
What does future forward banking mean to you?
Speed, innovation, convenience, lifestyle goals, or just simply getting service that is designed just for you. Yeah, we thought you might like all of that and more. That is why we specially created Providus Bank for you to take care of your daily experiences. At Providus Bank, we believe that banking should be all about you and your business and how to get you to the next level. If you do not already have a Providus Bank account, please speak with our business concierge on 0700 77 684 387 or email businessconcierge@providusbank.com to switch to a future-forward banking experience. Providus Bank. Future forward banking.
Hey, this is Chris Jasper, and you're listening to Nigeria's #1 station for soul, jazz, and funk. Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life.
Believe me when I say that it's true.
You know, that is very, 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 very true. This is your #1 station for soul, jazz, funk, world music, everything that concerns adult, contemporary, and even the intelligent talk and good information. That's why we are bringing this to you, how we say it in Nigeria's parlance, live and direct. We're talking about the sun and your skin, and you can join us, be a part of the show. It is 0809-444-0981. That is the WhatsApp line, 0809-444-0981. My guest is Dr. Folakemi Cole Adeife. And before that break, I said I was going to ask, what are those signs of photoaging? That's one side. And the other one is those white dots that you tend to see on people's body. Two things. I think over time it comes with age. That's just me giving my lay knowledge. And secondly, yeah, I think I tend to see it more in fair-skinned people.
Yes. So, firstly, for photoaging, photoaging can present in various ways. In dark-skinned people, it presents slightly differently from in lighter-skinned people, Caucasians, or people with albinism. So, in dark-skinned people, what we usually have is hyperpigmentation, something we call melasma. Melasma is sometimes you have some patchy darkening of particular areas on the face, the neck, the exposed parts of the body, particularly the face and neck. It's commoner in females, but it can occur in males as well, and it's quite undesirable. So, and most people that develop photoaging usually have it in their, midlife. So from their early 40s and all that, they begin to have features of that, and they're not very happy about it. So photoaging can occur as the tiny spots that sometimes people have on their skin, which people call skin tags, but they're not actually skin tags. They are what we call DPN. DPN is a long Latin name, short for dermatosis papulosa nigra, but DPN for short, and most people call them skin tags. So you find that people have those dark spots around their eyes, on the neck, and over time they usually get more. And then you also have a lot of wrinkling, not wrinkling but fine lines. So the face generally tends to become a bit more droopy. The skin is not as tight and as taut, and then you may begin to have lines on the forehead and lines around the eyes, lines at the nasolabial fold just by the sides of the cheek. So some of those things are things that tend to occur with age, and the sun has a large influence to play on how early those signs begin to appear. There are other factors at play, like your nutrition, like smoking, but the sun has a major role to play in some of those things as well. So in dark-skinned people, those are the things that we tend to see with photoaging. And generally, it just does what it says it does. It makes you look older and causes aging of the skin. So you want to nobody wants to look older than their age, I presume. So people want to take active steps to minimize or reduce, photoaging as much as they can. And then the IGH, the idiopathic guttate hypomelanosis that you mentioned, a lot of people, it number one can be hereditary. So it tends to run in families. So you have people once they're getting to their midlife as well, they begin to have those spots usually on the extremities. So they often start on the legs, and in some people they can occur also on the arms. But it can be accelerated in people who use lightening creams. So the use of lightening creams can accelerate that process, particularly lightening creams that contain hydroquinone. So we find that people who use hydroquinone containing lightening creams for long periods of time can have those spots occurring more rapidly than they would normally. So that's why sometimes you may see someone who probably is in their 30s who has a lot of those spots. And at that age, you're not expecting someone to have so many of them. But what is accelerating the process is the hydroquinone, because the hydroquinone is kind of preventing your melanin producing cells from producing melanin. So it inhibits the process of melanin production. And then the cells become redundant. So when you tell them that you don't want them to work, they just die off and say, okay, since you don't need me, let me poof and disappear. And so then you have, those kind of spots developing, because the spots are developing because where the melanin is supposed to, the melanocytes are supposed to produce melanin, they are dead. So they do not produce melanin, and those areas are colorless. So what I usually advise when I see younger people having lots of them probably has to do with your skincare. Can change your lightening cream to something that does not contain hydroquinone, and then also boost your diet with lots of antioxidants. It tends to improve, but it's something that when you say it's idiopathic, you can't completely stop it. So eventually it will take its course, but you can slow down the process with good skincare and all that. So that's with that.
Thank you so much. So much has been said already, and I think I have enough and more information, not enough, but at least more information than when we started. So as we draw to the end of this is 3 minutes past. What will be your final recommendation and advice?
So my recommendation would be use sunscreen, especially if you want to stay looking younger, for longer. Yes, we have a very good backup with our melanin. But just like food and diet, sometimes what you get from your food is not enough, and you need to supplement here and there. So it's the same with sunscreen. You have your melanin, but sometimes you need to supplement that with the sunscreen, particularly if you're someone who works outdoors a lot, particularly if you're someone who is very particular about your skin, if you're someone that maybe is in the media or an actress, or you just want to be able to look, much younger, when you're in your 50s and 60s, then start now to use sun protection. And there are lots of studies that confirm that people who do use sun protection from an earlier age tend to age better, and their skin doesn't look as old, as it will for people who do not use any sun protection. For us, we don't need to use it to prevent skin cancer. That's the truth. The data shows that people who are dark-skinned do not develop sun-induced skin cancer as often except there are other factors at play. But we do need it to, keep ourselves looking young and healthy and strong. So would recommend choosing the right sunscreen. If you're not sure, seek out the opinion of a dermatologist or an esthetician. There are a lot of people online now that give a lot of advice on sunscreen use and skincare products. Try to follow a certified dermatologist or esthetician to get the right information to make the right choices.
Thank you so much for sharing. You heard that. Try to follow one who is certified and of course has the right information, so that while you're not getting into the exact problem you're trying to run away from, or even worse. And you can check out Dr. Folakemi on social media. Instagram is Flaky Dancing Doc. That is FLAKYDANCINDOC. Flaky Dancing Duck. And trust me, you will find lots of videos and materials there that are very explanatory. Unfortunately, I cannot take questions anymore because we are so out of time. So I'll advise that you go and ask her. Of course, she's open and for more consultation, the real consultation, you know what I mean. All right, I'll keep this video for you on YouTube too, so you can find it on YouTube on our channel, which is youtube.com/smooth91 FM Lagos. 8:40, the kids have to come around, between 6 to 15 years of age, that is. And we'll have a great time as always on Curious Minds. This is Smooth 98.1.
And the rest will follow.
Thank you so much.
Figuring out what is healthy.
All right, thank you.
Mentally,
I'm guessing they should go, if they go to your page, they're going to find the answers
Healthy
to this
mind,
question because we
healthy
don't really
body,
have time.
healthy life.
30 minutes
sure.
so short.
Smooth
Yeah.
98.1.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
so much. Yeah, it's always a pleasure. Well done.
Bye.
All right. Okay.